Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here, filling in for Leland. Moving my hair so you can read my shirt. Those of you watching the YouTube stream. Uh, April Marie here, filling in for Leland every day until Friday. AJ attempting to keep me out of trouble. Although I got myself into some trouble with AJ. I could have helped a man out, but you know, men, he's stubborn. He didn't ask for help.
Well, first of all, I didn't realize how much help I needed yesterday, but I actually did it. I pulled it off pretty
did
well.
pull it off.
Did a good job. It was funny because it's almost like I spoke it into existence. We were talking about in the beginning of the show
You were.
yesterday about doing this like by yourself, right?
Which is hard.
It's very hard. And so then I get a text message that yesterday on Breaking Bread, Will, obviously, I knew that he was doing the Broadway show for Michael
Right,
Jackson.
He had to play.
And then JD was like, he's going to be out of commission. He has a meeting. You know, he has meetings, so he's on different boards.
Right.
And then, Darian, I guess,
No idea.
Yeah, I have no idea.
MIA.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay. And it was like, oh, yeah, you just do like a best of replay. I was like, no, it's like 15 minutes towards the end of the show. I don't think I'm able to get that in. So I was like, I said, with my inner Bill O'Reilly, screw this, we're going to do this live.
And you did.
I did it live.
You did.
I made it happen. And so it was fun. And then I get a text message from you saying, hey, I can
turn around and answer the phone.
Right. And I said, hey, come on. LOL. And then quiet.
Well, so here's what happened. So my daughter has volleyball until 7. Well, so I've got a sitter. Obviously, somebody has to watch the boys because the boys get done with school at 3. So I've got a sitter, and she's dropping her off. And then we're like, okay, well, this week I'll just go pick her up. So I'm off air at 6, and then I don't have to get her till 7, and she's only like 10 minutes away from here. So I'm literally in my car with like no idea where I'm going. And one of the things I gave up, actually gave up 3 things for Lent, but one of the things I'm giving up, or I knew I was giving up, was like extra spending on things I don't need, things I want, back to that conversation yesterday of understanding the difference between needs and wants. Like, we need groceries, but do I need the tiramisu from the grocery store? I might need to go to Target for laundry detergent, but do I need those 3 things from the makeup aisles? So trying to skip those wants that aren't needs. So knowing that was happening in my head, I was like, ooh, is it cheating to go kill time in a store right now? And I decided it wasn't, because it's like the people who give up cake or give up wine and they drink or eat the night before. I was like, nope, Fat Tuesday. We're going to the store. So being all wild and crazy, I sent you this text like, hey, if you need me to come back, I'll come back. And didn't hear back because you were managing phones and texts. And I managed to go into Hobby Lobby and did not get your text back. Like, it's a dead zone. It was a drop zone. So I'm not kidding when I tell you I spent what it was, 45 minutes in Hobby Lobby. And I walked around needing nothing.
But ended up spending how much?
Ended up spending $100.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
got that text
obscene.
message back towards the end of the show. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was in Hobby Lobby. And I spent $105. I was like, whoa, okay.
It's absolutely obscene. Well, because for those of you who go to Hobby Lobby, you know what this is like. So I walk in and I was like, okay, I'm just going to look around. And then I just zigzagged the aisles and I was like, oh, wait, there was a crochet. My son's been trying, he got a couple crochet kits for Christmas. It's what he asked for, my artsy one. But I watched the videos and still couldn't remember how to do it because I haven't picked up a crochet needle in a million years. I thought it would come naturally. It did not. And so I ended up, I was like, oh, there's a how-to book. So I get one of those. And then in the same aisle, there was cross stitch. And I was like, I wonder if I'd remember how to cross stitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll get me a cross stitch, a Winnie the Pooh cross stitch. Oh, well, I'm getting one. I might as well get him one because we can crochet together and cross stitch together. And so anyway, I did this all the way up. I got Easter stuff that was on sale because I love to get stuff. This is a Valentine's Day candy. I like getting stuff. Easter stuff is 66% off. So I went ahead and got some things from the Easter section. And then so my house, I go all out for most of the holidays. Like, we're silly, okay? We didn't do anything for President's Day, but we try to catch a leprechaun every year. Every year, the kids take Amazon boxes and markers and do leprechaun kits. and then the leprechaun comes and leaves each of them a little pile of green things. So they had the St. Patrick's Day stuff out, so I got St. Patrick's Day stuff.
Wait a minute, hold on. Did I miss something? Is there like a tradition where a leprechaun brings you something?
Yeah, there's a leprechaun will come to your house and you try to catch him, and if you don't catch him, he leaves you things. And
So what you get if you catch the leprechaun?
a leprechaun.
So you get a leprechaun if you catch it, but if you don't catch it, he leaves you something.
Yeah, you just get some of his treasures.
Oh,
so
do you just follow the rainbow? Do you leave out like Lucky Charms or anything like that?
We do. We leave out all sorts. There's
Okay.
been Lucky Charms. There's been little gold coins leading up to the box, and then usually he leaves a note. And I'm talking. We've done this. My kids, the oldest is 13. We've done this 13 years now.
So this is why I found little mini alcohol bottles like all over my house. I got a drunk
You got
I got
a
a drunk
drunk
leprechaun.
leprechaun.
Yeah, okay.
So this is so
And he
they.
be wanting to fight all the time too.
So I buy all the green things like leading up to this, because if you wait till just before, all the green things are marked up because everybody's buying green things. So anyway, that was $100. It was ridiculous. I bought a couple books, which one of them was like questions. The same middle child is incredibly inquisitive, and so he asked me all the time, like, who created God and who created, we get a church and he'll ask, what about this, what about that. So I found a book of, the most asked and answered, here's the answers, questions based on biblical references. So I got, again, books and this and that. And it was all my own fault. If I had just seen your text earlier, I'd have been here answering the phone for you.
Oh, no. I made it work. I made it through.
Yes.
And Will did finally call in.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he was a little, he was having a little bit too much fun. But that's just Will. He's
That's
a
the
good
best.
dude. Now I'm interested in to see if that Sage Play was actually pretty good.
Oh,
'cause
so
I'm
y'all are here
definitely-
tonight. You
yeah.
guys stay tuned. Is he going to be on tonight on Breaking
Yes,
Bread? Okay.
yes.
So now extra reason to listen to Breaking Bread.
Yeah,
So today I've got all sorts of topics lined up. We're going to do some national stuff, of course, but we're also going to do some state stuff. I did some stories for 1819 News last night. So if you went to 1819 News this morning, I had two somewhat controversial stories. One was on a national organization scores states for their education freedom. How school choice friendly is this state? And Alabama, so it's ALEC is the organization that does this. They released their report, and Alabama got a B plus, which is pretty freaking good. B plus, not bad, all things considered. But I go look at the report and dig into the details. I could have just reported that we got a B plus and called it done. But I'm an investigative reporter, so I sure enough go look into the methodology and look into what they scored. And it turns out they scored us incorrectly on our homeschool laws. And so, this is one of those stories where if you know Jeff Purr, I just want y'all to imagine how much it bugs him that he will give me a story that should take 30 minutes to write up, and I end up taking 3 days because I got to make 10 calls and I got to look up state statute and I got to do all the things. But that's what they got when they got me. So my story out today, ALEC gave us a B plus in education freedom, but that's because they're citing incorrect homeschool regulations. So we'll talk about what the actual homeschool regulations are, where we have areas to grow, all of those things this afternoon. If you're a homeschool family, if you're a family taking Choose Act money, would love for you to call in when we're talking about that, because I think it is rather important that every family finds an education answer that works for them. And here's what, as the Choose Act money has come online, and for those not familiar, that's the education savings accounts where if you choose not to put your kid in the public school they're zoned for, the tax money that would have gone to them, a portion of it, not all of it, a portion of it follows the child. So if your child is zoned for a failing school, or your child has special needs, or your child has for whatever reason you decide to put your kid in a different school, then that $7,000 will follow them. And so what I've learned is that there were families who were having to separate their kids because they couldn't afford to put 2 or 3 kids in a private school. And so their kids where an older sibling went and a younger sibling didn't, or the younger sibling did or didn't. And so I want to talk about that because it's incredibly important that kids are having their needs met. because that's how we where we get our future workforce from. This is where we, this is where the rubber meets the road on our very few obligations that we do have as a state, and that the government has is education. So we'll talk about that report, and then the other report, which ooh, ooh, I got pretty mad. In Pickens County. So it started with somebody sent me an arrest from yesterday from Pickens County. It's a fourth grade teacher who was arrested on charges of child pornography and using her position for personal gain. As I was looking into this, so again, could have just done that story on that one woman. But I find that the Tuscaloosa Thread has reported that she was actually the fourth teacher this year. We're February 18th, guys. She's actually the fourth teacher in 3 weeks to be arrested on child pornography charges. One of the men is actually a pastor at a First Baptist church. And so we'll talk about that, and all of that story and what I found there a little later as well. Hey, did I mention that first story kind of ties into that second story? Homeschool your kids. Trust your gut. Pay attention to who your kids are spending all day every day with. Listen to them, ask them questions, all the things. We'll also get into some of the races. JD Vance made an endorsement this afternoon here in Alabama, so we'll get into that. Shenanigans afoot in Montgomery. All of those things and more on Leland Live with April Murray. You guys hold tight. Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Murray here, filling in for Leland. Good music, AJ. Thank you for that. Speaking of which, I wrote up a story. If you missed my interview yesterday, we had Jeff Brumlow in here from Central Alabama Water, and I have that up online on 1819 News. I wrote that up this afternoon. I've said this before, but the only thing stranger than listening to yourself talk on radio is to go back and watch yourself. So I was watching myself as I was writing up the story, but it did remind me that I said I was going to talk about my newfound appreciation for jelly rolls. So you guys be prepared for that conversation a little later today. All right. Mentioned a few things. There really is a lot to get to, and I have to remind myself I've got 4 hours, so we don't have to rush through these things. If you are watching on the live stream, I also have that open, so you can say hello and I can text you there since I don't have the text line. You can always call in. 205 545 9950 is that number. All right. So I'll start with the big one. The big one is we already know that President Donald Trump has endorsed Barry Moore for U.S. Senate, and he's endorsed John Wall for lieutenant governor. This afternoon, we got an endorsement came in from J.D. Vance, the first of his. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's the first one I remember. You guys can call and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's the first time I remember J.D. Vance endorsing, and he endorsed Barry Moore as well, saying President Trump needs proven allies in the Senate who will fight for his America First agenda without hesitation. Barry Moore has been that ally from day one. I've personally endorsed Barry's campaign because I've seen his character and commitment firsthand. He's the kind of fighter President Trump needs in the Senate. So that is breaking news if this afternoon. So again, about an hour ago, honestly. All right. We're going to go to the phone lines with David from Jasper about education. Hi, David. Yep. It is a mess. Yep. Thank you, David. I love those calls. I tell you what. Well, I'm going to just jump right back into that. So, as David said, one of the topics I have on the agenda to talk about today is school choice here in Alabama. So on 1819 News, if you get the newsletter or you saw the site this morning, my story was top of the page there, which was the American Legislative Exchange Council, which we have a lot of active lawmakers who are part of ALEC. I have looked to ALEC for information and policy for years. They put out their 2026 edition of its Index of State Education Freedom. In terms of rankings, we're ranked pretty high. We are ranked number 12 in the nation for education freedom. So 12th in the nation, not terrible. Florida number 1. I knew that was coming because of DeSantis. Florida number 1, Arizona number 2, Arkansas number 3, Iowa, West Virginia number 5, and then it goes Indiana, Utah, Oklahoma. Texas is 9. I would have thought Texas would be higher like Florida, but it's not. But we're number 12. Now, that number 12 is including us losing being dinged for, and back to that earlier conversation I was saying of if I wasn't just going to report on our score, I was going to report on why we got that score, and they break it down. So, student-centered funding programs, we got an A in that. Okay, we have the Choose Act. I mentioned that earlier. As a matter of fact, the application process is happening now. If this sounds like an advertisement, it is not. It is just me as a concerned mother. And quite frankly, I was a school choice advocate before I was a mother. But now I really, really love it having three kids, one of which is homeschooled, two of which are in a private school, that I can say, I've seen firsthand how important this is. Now we have the Choose Act. The first year, it was up to a certain level of poverty and income that you could qualify for it. The second year, which is this year, the income rates went a little higher. Next year, it's open. If you have a child if you have a child in the state of Alabama, you will be able to choose the school you want for them, whether it's their school that they're zoned for their public school or a private school. And actually, at this point, if you qualify for the Choose Act, you can even choose to homeschool, and you don't get the same amount of money. Uh, some people are like, oh, we're just giving people money. No, it goes into what's called a digital wallet. And what you do is you choose approved resources. So, a lot of homeschool parents, myself included, are incredibly weary of overregulation in the homeschool space, or any regulation for that matter in the homeschool space. We're going to dive into that in a minute because that's where I went down the rabbit hole here. But what this does through the Choose Act is you as a parent, you have this digital wallet. You actually never have the cash in your hands, and then there are approved resources, approved educational materials, approved curriculum, textbooks, workbooks, manipulatives for the little kids to learn math. Those math cubes, or the kind of Play-Doh you'd use, not regular Play-Doh, but I bet regular Play-Doh's in there too. Scholastic books, you name it, and the vendors are there, and you can use that money there. So student-centered funding programs, we get an A. Our grade goes down from there with some B's, C's, and even an F. We're going to talk about each of those when we get back from this break. You guys hold tight. April Marie filling in for Leland. Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here. The YouTube is live, and I'm assuming we know what they say about assumptions, but I'm assuming most of you know what that is going on with my head. But if you don't, today is Ash Wednesday. It is the beginning of Lent. I was telling AJ coming up, I'm actually looking forward to getting home this evening because so usually we go to the evening mass, and for no particular reason, but we do. We just go to the evening mass. Today, because I'm on air, we're going to miss that mass. So we went to the 8 a.m. mass, which means it's the first day that my boys have gone to school with ash on their head. And so I'm looking forward to we watched, I found some videos online. There's actually some really well done ones, videos explaining what Ash Wednesday is and what Lent is and all of those things. So we watched some videos last night, and I sent one that was I try to be mindful of the different cultures at the school, but they do share those kinds of things. My kids have, they learned what Kwanzaa was, and they learned what Diwali. I may have said that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. They learned different things, and so I went ahead and sent the best of the What is Ash Wednesday to the teachers for them to share when the boys got back to school today. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that went. I was talking about education, and I'm going to get back into that a little later. We may talk a little bit more about Lent, and I'll tell you what I'm giving up. I actually brought the books I'm reading in case anybody wants to start a Lent book club. If there's any Catholic women out there that want to do Lent with me, and you're maybe not sure, since today is the first day, you're not missing out. But I'll tell you the two books I'm reading and the what my 40-day challenge is going to be. My most challenging, I believe, 40-day challenge. All right. So back to the education. I was talking about the Choose Act. It is open right now. So if you have kids that are in a private school and you aren't aware of this, you can go check out the website at the State Department of Education. Look at what the qualifications are, and if you don't qualify due to income this year, just know next year it'll be open to everyone. And then this year, because last year they had so many more applicants than spots available because the legislature only dedicated a certain amount of money. This year, Governor Ivey and the legislature are increasing that so that more families can participate because the demand was so high, which tells you something. It tells you that our public education system is not meeting the needs of Alabama's families. And it's that simple. It is, we need a system that is responsive to families. I chose not to send my kids to the public school they're zoned for. I think everybody knows I live in Birmingham proper, and so we are zoned for city schools. And actually, my girlfriend who was here this past weekend for Valentine's Day, we did Galentine's Day. My girlfriend who was here is a former teacher, and we talked a lot about the differences between Florida schools, Florida school choice, and Alabama schools, and then we talked, and she's a big teachers union. Yeah, I think I told y'all this. She's a big liberal. God bless her. And so we talked about teachers unions, and we talked about our public schools. And the fact of the matter is, the reason I chose not to send my kids to the school, and the circumstances have changed for the school they're zoned for. It's had new administration for a while now, but there was a 30% literacy rate at third grade. The infrastructure, the school itself, the air condition kicked on and off, and the building is just old, and there was a lot of administration and teacher turnover, and there's a lot of disciplinary problems. That's actually a very common thing in a lot of public schools, frighteningly so in some cases, but the disciplinary challenges. And I just chose, I tell my kids all the time, my number one job while they're little is to protect them. And sometimes it's from obvious threats, we're not going to let you get hit by a car. And sometimes it's from threats of, decisions they might want to make. And sometimes I'm not going to send you to that school. It's not safe for you, and it's not going to give you what you need to be to succeed in life. I want every family to have that opportunity. I want every family to be able to choose the school that best meets their needs. So I talked a little bit about the ALEC scorecard. Student-centered funding programs got an A on that. Charter schools, they got a C on, and part of the reason that they got that C, that is that there is, and I'm going to kind of go back to the report, which is in my story if you guys are 18, 19 readers. And feel free to call in. Uh, 205-545-9950 if you have thoughts on school choice. But when in looking at the scoring mechanisms, they gave Alabama's charter schools a C, and then they gave homeschooling a C. The report cites two things for homeschooling as being a problem. One, it says the state needs to remove the requirement that teachers possess an Alabama teaching license. Two, it says remove the requirement that homeschooling curriculum include the same areas of study as traditional public schools. Well, here's the problem. We don't have those two requirements in the state. And so our grade doesn't reflect that. We got a C in homeschooling. We really should be an A. We are a phenomenally supportive state of homeschooling. And if anybody has questions on homeschooling in terms of, what about this or that, or you want to share your experience, you can call in. And so I took the time. I called the Department of Education, and the Department of Education confirmed that and this is the quote from their office. The Alabama State Department of Education is not authorized to license or regulate any non-private, non-public, or church school offering instruction in grades K-12 or any combination thereof, except as to the application of the Child Protection Act of 1999, as amended, which relates, by the way, to criminal background checks when required by law. Also, they do not require parents to have a state teaching certification to teach their own kids. That would be ridiculous. That would defeat the purpose of homeschooling if we required everybody who homeschooled to go through the state, either go through college to do that, or go to or get a certification. There is a teacher statute on record, a tutor statute on record that dates back to the 1940s, but that's not applicable in Alabama. So we have some of the best education laws there are. Now, one area we got an F in as a state is open enrollment. This is always very controversial. If you have a student in Birmingham, you cannot send them to another Birmingham school. You cannot send them to Mountain Brook schools. You cannot send them to Vestavia schools. They believe that they should be able to do so. This is one of those things that I really had a long discussion with my teacher friend. Heck, if you're a teacher in Mountain Brook and you and your kids live in Birmingham, you can't take your kids there. There's been a fight for that for years. That is one area where I don't see it changing. I see us getting better with virtual schools. Our homeschooling's fine the way it is. Possibly some changes to charter schools, but open enrollment is going to be a tough battle just because of the way our school districts are in this state and how many we have. Just think about the greater Birmingham area and how many areas have broken off and have their own school and how successful those schools are. And so it's going to be interesting looking at the Trump administration, which is, by the grace of God, working to dismantle the federal Department of Education and give that power back to the states. Then the states will therein give the power back to localities and the parents. And this is how we get the world-class education that our kids deserve. All right, that's as far as I've got on education. Feel free to call in. We're going to take a break. If not, I'm going to go back to some of these national issues. You guys hold tight. You're listening to Leland Live with April Marie. Well, good afternoon, everyone. April Marie here. Plugging right along, got all the way through that first hour. President Donald Trump is talking live. I love this presidency. No hiding in a basement, no scripted remarks, just Donald Trump off the cuff more often than not, or at least going off the script, whatever script they do give him. He's doing a Black History Month event. We're going to go to that for just a minute.
Badly hurt and killed, frankly, many people killed. And now you can walk down the street and you have nothing to fear. We have one of the safest cities in the world, and it happened very fast, Bruce. One of those who knows the importance of this mission is Felicia Cook, a lifelong Washingtonian who tragically lost her grandson to violence in 2017. Felicia, we're so sorry, and you are a spectacular person. If you could say a few words, please. Thank you very much. Yes, come on in. Oh, yeah. Oh, help her up.
Okay, so
we
we're
don't want any mistakes.
We'll keep an eye on that press conference.
Come on in. Thank you.
Looks like he's talking about the
Yes, you
safety
can.
of Washington, D.C.
That's so nice. Thank you. I like her.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll go back to that a little later if he starts taking questions again. Right now, he's talking about public safety in Washington, D.C. You know, it's always fun. And I say fun from the idea of it makes me really angry. It's comically bad how obvious the left wing media will spin what Trump does. They almost stopped covering what Trump had done in Washington D.C. and other states because the local officials more often than not Democrats would not get the crime in their own cities down. Now we're seeing crime across the country down. What Randall Woodfin put out a statement, and I'll get into that because he's actually rolled out a whole program for young Black men in the city of Birmingham, and I'll get into that in the next hour or sometime at today's show. But we're seeing crime down across the country, and one thing that gets me, is even when crime is up. What we don't really get enough of is people realizing how many of these individuals who are committing these crimes have been let out by liberal judges. And we've got them right here in Jefferson County. We've got them right here in Alabama. And you'll see these individuals with, 5, 10, 15, 20 more crimes, criminal charges, independent of one another. And the judges will still plead down felonies. They'll still give them suspended sentences. They'll still give them a slap on the wrist. And for that, I really do believe that we need some kind of system to keep these judges in check. Crime out of control in places where it spirals and spins. I think one of the reasons we're seeing crime down is because individuals realize that Trump will send in reinforcements. They will come in just like they did Washington, D.C. They will patrol the streets. The threat of that is making local elected officials prioritize hiring police officers. It's making local elected officials, it's making those within the criminal justice system realize that they've got to get these people off the street. No more career criminals. It goes the same way with ICE. We have localities starting to say who have never said they'd never do it before. They stood on their little soapboxes. Oh, we're going to be a sanctuary city. We're going to be a welcoming city. We're going to be a whatever. And now they're starting to turn people over to ICE because, again, they don't want President Trump to come in, as he's rightfully doing. Citizens of even Democrat cities, citizens of, say, Washington, D.C., they still deserve to be safe. I watched a video yesterday. I was preparing for today's show, and there's probably 5 to 7 young men, all having all sorts of firearms, brandishing them in a incredibly unsafe way, terrorizing their neighborhood, and that's what they're doing. And nobody deserves that. I don't care how you vote, and I've said this before. Safety. Especially when you're talking about the safety of citizens, your children, your seniors, your innocent people who cannot afford to get out of a neighborhood, they shouldn't have to compromise safety because liberal lawmakers refuse to do their job. because these liberal judges refuse to keep the people off the street. One thing, and I've applauded Woodfin when he gets things right. One thing Woodfin was really clear about when he was talking about Birmingham crime was the problem of this no snitch culture, where individuals were like, we can't tell on the people we very clearly know are doing these crimes because they didn't have the belief that the criminal justice system would hold these individuals. Thankfully, we have a NIAS law in this state. And if you're not familiar, they are even going further. Last year, they went further and increased, included additional crimes. And so we're seeing cases where people are getting arrested and they're still behind bars. I mentioned earlier the 4 teachers, and we'll talk about it in the next hour, from Pickens County, who are all arrested, and the charges are disgusting. We've got the one teacher, the 4th grade teacher, a woman, arrested. Now all of these are allegations, and they get to go to a court of law. They're innocent until they're proven guilty in a court of law. But we've got one teacher, 4th grade teacher, arrested on charges of child pornography and using her office for public gain. We've got a Aliceville high school teacher and pastor at our local First Baptist, a 58-year-old man, arrested on charges. This is on Monday of this week. Child solicitation of child pornography, possession of child pornography, illegal distribution of a controlled substance, and providing drugs to a minor. 3rd teacher, a 28-year-old man, arrested for felony indecent exposure, 3 counts of sexual misconduct. Public school teachers, 3 at the one high school, independent of one another, are arrested on these charges. 3 counts of ethics violations, 3 counts of failure to report child abuse, 3 counts of felony distributing of a private image. And then one more, which was arrested just 3 weeks ago. He's got possession of child abuse, sexual abuse material, dissemination of child sexual abuse material, solicitation of child abuse, sexual abuse material, failure to report child abuse, and an ethics violation. This is who's in our public schools. This is who judges are giving slaps on the wrist to under normal circumstances. All 4 of these individuals, mind you, right now are sitting in the Pickens County Jail. They're all sitting together in the Pickens County Jail. What we have to make sure is that the individuals who do these crimes, especially the absolutely horrific ones, we saw earlier this year where we have now passed and the governor signed into law that criminal child sexual abuse is now punishable by the death penalty. More of that, please. I say that sitting here with ashes on my head. If you take the innocence of a young child, like we saw in Bibb County, and I'm going to keep bringing up Bibb County because as much as you guys want to talk about the Epstein files, if you have spent days, weeks, months, years talking about the Epstein files, and you're not paying attention to what has happened right here in the state of Alabama, I implore you to. I implore you to take the same zeal that you're using to follow the Epstein case and use that energy and put it into the resources and the organizations we have right here in Alabama, getting these types of individuals off the streets. And in this case, get these types of individuals off our streets and out of our classrooms. Could you imagine we have individuals taking advantage? Again, the 4th grader was the one that came on my radar yesterday, but turns out there are 4. Don't know what's happening in Pickens County. Phone line is open. We'll continue this conversation and get to more in the next hour, especially what's going on in Montgomery. You guys hold tight for that.